Hi guys, Simon Treselian here. This is the Lockdown Chronicles 7. I'm going to do a little bit of a departure today because a lot of people have been asking me, like how long is this going to go on for? And of course no one knows, and it'll be ridiculous to even try and put a time frame on it at the moment. What I can tell you though is what normally happens in an emergency and a crisis like this, because there are certain protocols that the government look at. There are certainly a lot of things that the government and the military do as well, and they understand the psychology of what a lockdown does to a populace, and it's not fun. People have done this for a long time. We saw this in the Bosnia and Kosovan campaign as well. There's only so much you can do with people because they're all free spirits and they all make their own decisions, and some of those decisions are going to be questionable. And the more that you put stress and strain on a populace, on a culture, on a country, then the more that those sinews that hold everything together, that hold all the reasonable people together and hold their minds together, start to pull apart. And at that point, you get real problems. So let's do a quick reality check. I mean, the reality check is that, we've been through these things before, but not to the same level of hysteria that is really going on. I mean, more people today have died through normal flu and car accidents and things like this than they have done with this COVID-19. It's an emotional response that everyone's having, and it's going to have a dramatic effect on society. And I think this is why the president today has given a little bit of blue sky and said, let's get the country back to work, let's get the economy back to work, because he knows, and everybody in the military knows, and certainly the law enforcement, that more people will be killed and will die if this goes on for more than 2 or 3 weeks. Not by COVID-19. That's going to be the least of your problems at that point. When there is social disorder, as we've seen in places like LA and Chicago and Baltimore, when that starts happening and the riots start happening and the looting starts happening, home invasions, that's when you're going to start to see a lot more problems. In fact, I think it's bizarre at the moment that the death rate in Chicago, the daily death rate in Chicago average, has actually gone down because of the virus. People are staying in and not killing each other. So there are a lot more problems to think about rather than just this spurious disease which doesn't even register on the list of bad epidemics that have been in the past. So we do need to get a bit of a handle on that, and I do believe there are other forces at work here. There are some agendas that are being played out. There's no doubt about that. And unfortunately, this does seem to be almost like a bit of a dress rehearsal for something that may come in later. And this is, I actually have been writing about this in my second book of the Order trilogy called The Cradle Falls. So I actually talk about the release of the virus. I actually used the Marburg virus as to how that's done and the government response. I actually lay it all out, and it's coming so true. It's almost scary. So this 14-day lockdown, 14 days is a psychological threshold. This is why a lot of people go away for 14 days. Going away on holiday for a week is usually not enough. 14 days, just about right. So it's a threshold. Once you lock people around, and put them under quarantine for 14 days, they can handle that. Anyone can handle anything for 14 days. When you're placed in a situation, involuntarily sometimes with other people, you can deal with those things. As soon as it gets over that, people start to get a little bit antsy, and this is a psychological threshold. People understand that. You see that in prisons, you see that in detainment. People start making differing choices at that stage, and you get, cabin fever. People talk about going stir crazy, and what would normally be acceptable suddenly becomes an irritant. And that irritant then starts to build. So you have that problem within the actual environment itself. And then, of course, once you need to break free, that irritation and some of those, those pent-up restrictions then explode. And they explode out of control into an unwilling populace. And that becomes a real problem. So I do feel that the social problems that could be apparent after such an issue would totally outweigh the health concerns of what is essentially a flu. You know? So social disorder becomes a real problem at that point. Once people start running out of money, they start running out of food, they start running out of hope, and then what are you going to do? I mean, what if a family needs baby formula? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to try and get it in any way, shape or form that you can. And if people have been hoarding it, then eventually someone's going to find out where this stuff is, and that becomes a problem at that stage. So at that point, of course, you have a social disorder situation. So, of course, people say, well, that's what we've got the police for. But guess what the police are going to be doing? They're going to be protecting you. They're going to be protecting government installations and what is called key points. So radio stations, power stations, food supplies, sort of government politicians. That's where the police will be. They will not be coming out for you. You are going to be your first responder. So I can guarantee that. And then, of course, what happens when the police do come out? Then you're going to have rioting that's going on. Then we have this escalation. And then it goes into the military. And then there's like a curfew and then martial law. And, of course, then the only people that are actually going out there are the criminals. And, of course, the criminals are going to be armed and they're going to do what criminals do. It's up to then. It's going to be every person for themselves. And then you're going to get a fight back. And that's when people start to bond together. They start to create their own groups, whether it be neighborhood watch groups or at more extreme levels, militia groups, because people know that that's the only thing that's going to protect them. So there is this real escalation that happens when you get into things like martial law, and a lot more problems will come from there. So I understand why the administration at the moment is saying, let's get everyone back, let's get the economy going, because if we don't, then people are going to die long term and more of them for a longer time. So someone's going to have to bite the bullet soon, and I imagine there's a lot of people in Washington crunching numbers and doing a matrix of how many people that you're willing to let go, how many people, it's like triage. How many people are you willing to let die in order to be able to keep the country there? And that is not a job that I would certainly like, but that is going to happen. What we saw in places like Sarajevo during the Bosnian War is that once that order breaks down, currency really doesn't matter, because once your currency fails, once your economy falls and your currency fails, it doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank at that point. It's a great leveler, because it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or if you're a pauper. Your money doesn't mean anything. It happened in Nazi Germany when people talk about having wheelbarrows of cash, just to buy a loaf of bread. So what happened in Bosnia is that the money ran out very, very quickly. Certainly the local currency lasted only a couple of days. And then the American dollar then became the currency, which lasted a few more days. I think it was about a week, before people went to precious gems and to gold and silver. And people were using their rings and family heirlooms to be able to buy essentials. Then it morphed, and then it went to sex and cocaine. And people were literally selling small bags of cocaine, and that was the currency. So it can degenerate very, very quickly, and what you think that you have of value suddenly becomes valueless. So a lot of people are storing food, but as I said the other day, the greatest currency in a situation like this is military leadership, because if you can have all the garage full of toilet rolls and hand sanitizers and baby formula, someone comes to your house with a gun, they're going to take it away from you. It's as simple as that. And the more guns that they have and the more people backing them up means the more successful they're actually going to be. And this is how warlords started in Bosnia, and the whole country just went into a complete tailspin, where law and order and the military and the government just simply ceased to exist. And criminal warlords just ran the roost. And at that stage, there was all sorts of problems, much worse than any type of pandemic that you can even consider. So we need to get a handle on this right away. People need to be sensible. People need to listen to the news but not be affected by the news. And they need to do what is right at the present time. As I said before, you're going to be your own first responder. You're going to be the one that's responsible for your family. You need to buckle up. You need to get what you can. You need to just sit this out. After the 14 days, I believe that there will be more of a solution. I believe that no one wants to escalate this beyond a couple more weeks. It's just not going to be worth their while. But you may see a rise in deaths, unfortunately. You may see a rise in cases, but those cases are never, ever going to be anywhere close to the normal death rate in a country anyway. You know, when you look at suicides, when you look at car accidents, when you look at medical misdiagnosis, you know, that takes 280,000 people out every year. You know, there's a lot of reasons why you can die in this world, and COVID-19 is right down the list when it comes to that. So let's get real about this. Let's get prepared for the journey. So this is Simon Treselian. I wish I had better news for you. You know, to keep positive. We will get through this. You know, together we'll make it happen. And I will continue to make these videos as long as I can to, you know, to help people try and, you know, get some degree of sense out there, if I'm making sense. So please freely share this, you know, subscribe to my YouTube. I wish you all well. I pray for all of you, and let's get through this together. Bye-bye now.